This is the U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
I think we watched this.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Pennsylvania that would shock the entire world. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, was very nearly assassinated by a gunman during a rally in his re-election campaign. During Trump's speech, a lone gunman managed to climb up onto the roof of a one-story building and position himself on an elevated position roughly 450.
I'm confused, like a sausage and bread.
50 feet.
There's like
or about 137.
There is. I don't know if it's exclusively Ukrainian. It might be in a few cultures in the region, but like they're basically like cheeseburgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're it's like completely enclosed and fried in like bread, and it's like ground beef on the inside with cheese.
Okay.
So it's like a little, like, you ever see an Uncrustable or a pierogi? You know, it's like a cheeseburger pierogi.
I don't know what any of those words mean.
You don't know what a pierogi is?
Is this English?
No.
Oh, well, that explains.
It's Polish though. You just must not have. It's like you must not have a lot of.
I don't know where the Polish people are in Melbourne. I'll be honest. I don't keep track of the white people.
I think it's really more. I think it's more of an American thing then. But they're just they're Polish dumplings.
Oh, okay.
Meters away from Trump. Armed with an AR-15 style rifle, the gunman had a perfect view of Trump within his sights. And before he could be stopped, approximately 8 minutes into the start of Trump's speech,
the sausage and bread. It's a sausage roll. It's a British thing. Look it up. It's gross.
A sausage roll? I know what a sausage roll is.
Gross.
They're great.
Like,
you're wrong.
No, gross. Get out of here. You can't. You can't.
Fire out.
You can't be putting all that bread on there, and then you're forced to like dip it. You know.
You know, strudels are the same fucking thing, right?
You gotta open them up,
like the dessert strudels, but like
I don't give a fuck. You gotta open those hot dogs up to put the chili on it, for like Sonic the Hedgehog.
If you say so.
8 shots towards Trump's direction. One of the bullets fired by the shooter pierced through Donald Trump's upper right ear, missing his brain by merely millimeters, leaving him injured but alive before he managed to duck behind the podium he was speaking in front of, and before he was rushed by Secret Service agents who protected him with their own bodies. Out of the shooter's other
this is such a fucking just glazing description of what happened.
Fired shots. A spectator in the audience about here in the northeastmost bleacher was struck and killed. 50-year-old Corey Comparatore, while 2 other spectators down in the southeastmost bleacher were struck by the shooter's fire and critically injured, but survived. Within seconds of opening fire, the shooter was engaged and eliminated by the Secret Service's counter-sniper teams that had been positioned on 2 of the buildings immediately behind the podium where Trump was speaking.
Okay. So he got the shot correct. Great.
And the immediate danger was removed. Regardless, the
right, excellent, fantastic.
Attempt on Donald Trump's life by an assassin left him injured and nearly cost him his life, marking the most serious assassination attempt committed against a former or sitting U.S. president since the attempt on Ronald Reagan's life more than 40 years ago now, back in 1981. The photos taken from the event will no doubt be historic photographs used in textbooks discussing this period of American history decades out from now. But several very big questions loom over the entire United States right now. How did a man get so close to
what?
Pictures in history books, like you don't get deep into like history like that in like school.
Wouldn't know.
Actually assassinating a former president and current major candidate for the presidency? What was the shooter's motive? And how did the organization tasked with protecting current, former, and potential presidents, the United States Secret Service, fail this catastrophically? To begin with, the U.S. Secret Service did not have a completely spotless record before this attack. The organization was originally created by Abraham Lincoln in 1865 to combat currency counterfeiting, but it wasn't given its current mandate of protecting American presidents and other political leaders.
It's just kind of funny. It's like Just being like, wow, they sure fucked up that job, even though that they weren't tasked with guarding the president back then with Lincoln.
Until after President William McKinley was shot and killed by an anarchist. McKinley's assassination that year marked the third sitting U.S. president to be killed in office by an assassin in only 36 years, after Abraham Lincoln's assassination in 1865 and James A. Garfield's assassination in 1881. But even after the Secret Service was given its current mandate to protect America's major political...
What?
You know what Lincoln's last words were?
Nope.
Water.
What are you doing here?
Don't joke about Abraham Lincoln.
Several attempts to get through them proved successful, or nearly so. Teddy Roosevelt was wounded by an assassin's bullet at a campaign rally while he was running for a third term in office in 1912. Later in 1933, another gunman standing in a crowd managed to fire 5 shots at President-elect FDR during one of his speeches, all of which missed, but which still came close enough for major concern. In 1950, 2 armed men stormed the residence of President Harry Truman in Washington, D.C., and engaged the Secret Service and police in a gunfight, killing 1 police officer in the process before being stopped without ever harming Truman. Most infamously, President John F. Kennedy was killed by an assassin's bullet while traveling under the Secret Service's protection during a motorcade in Dallas in 1963, the most glaring failure in the Secret Service's entire history. 5 years after that failure, JFK's younger brother, Robert F. Kennedy, was also shot and killed by a gunman in 1968 while he was at a campaigning event while he was running for president. At the time, the Secret Service wasn't protecting major political candidates for the presidency, and so RFK's protection was outside of their scope. His assassination changed that, and from then on until the current day, major political candidates running for the presidency will also be placed under Secret Service protection. Within only a few more years, though, in 1972, George Wallace, a major political candidate who was running for the Democratic nomination for president in 1972, was shot by an assassin at a campaigning event at a shopping center in Maryland. Wallace survived the attack, but was left permanently paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life, and it ended his run for the presidency.
And now
a few years later, in 1975,
now he's the governor of Texas.
Yeah, great.
That's a joke because Greg
President
Abbott
Gerald
is literally the same dude. You know what I'm saying?
Ford just narrowly survived 2 back-to-back assassination attempts against him while he was in college.
Right?
No.
It's either it was, I believe, Make America Great Again. He was a Nazi. He was a Nazi. He would
yes, it was.
He would block black girls from being able to
I believe it was, yes.
By standing at the doors.
Very cool.
California. In the first attempt, a woman managed to get within arm's reach.
What?
Assassinations.
Reach of him near the Sacramento Capitol building and aimed a pistol at him and pulled the trigger.
Wow,
the gun only failed to fire because the assassin hadn't chambered a round in it. Then, only a little more than 2 weeks later, while in San Francisco, another woman standing in a crowd fired at President Ford from across the street, missing his head with a bullet by a mere 5 inches. A few years later, in 1981, an assassin named John Hinckley Jr., standing within a crowd of onlookers, infamously shot President Ronald Reagan as he walked by him, very nearly killing him in the process, which up until the attempt on Donald Trump's life this year...
I don't know if it's true or not, because I just don't care. It would be funny if it is, that Jackson Hinkle got arrested by Maduro.
No, but I've seen a lot of stuff about Jackson Hinkle in Venezuela. It's very, very funny.
The most serious failure of the Secret Service since the JFK assassination. But even though the assassination attempt on Reagan was the last time before Trump that an assassin seriously wounded a president or a presidential candidate, there have been many, many attempts and near misses in between that time and multiple scandals on the part of the Secret Service as an organization. In 1994, when Bill Clinton was president, a man armed with an SKS rifle standing on the sidewalk just outside the White House grounds fired 29 rounds into the White House while Bill Clinton was inside. Secret Service agents immediately rushed across the White House lawn toward him with their weapons drawn, while local citizens who happened to be nearby managed to tackle the shooter and subdue him before he was arrested. Nobody was hurt in the incident, but the shooter was sentenced to 40 years in prison. A decade later, in 2005, when President George W. Bush was visiting the country of Georgia...
Somebody's gonna finally talk about it. Let's go. This one's so slept on.
In that country's capital, Tbilisi, a man stood in the crowd in Tbilisi's Central Liberty Square, awaiting a joint speech by President Bush and Georgia's then president, Mikhail Saakashvili. As soon as Bush began speaking, the man in the crowd lobbed a Soviet-made RGD-5 hand grenade that was wrapped up in a red patterned handkerchief toward the podium where Bush was speaking, which landed a mere 61 feet, or about 19 meters away from the president. The handkerchief stayed wrapped around the grenade, which kept it disguised, but also likely prevented the grenade's striker lever from releasing, which prevented the grenade from ever detonating. Bush didn't even learn about the assassination attempt until after the rally had ended.
Look at
The
this
man responsible was later tracked.
Even if that grenade went off, that he would have been fine. 60 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the kill radius on a grenade?
I'm actually not sure.
I think it's supposed to be 25 meters or something.
Mm-hmm.
Down by the FBI and local Georgian authorities and sentenced to life in prison. Now, over the past 60 years of history since JFK's infamous assassination in 1963, the U.S. Secret Service has dramatically expanded in
5
size
meters.
and scope, from a relatively small, compact force of only 300 agents at the time of the Kennedy assassination to a small army of around 8,000 agents today. While its budget has similar
casualty radius is 15 meters. So 5 is lethal, 15 is casualty. So he would have been fine. 90 feet away from him. Would have hurt somebody, and it would hurt, people going there, but
yeah.
ballooned in size from only $5 million a year then to $3 billion a year today, roughly equal to half of the entire budget of the New York City Police Department, which currently employs 36,000 officers, meaning that the Secret Service has about 4.5 times fewer agents than the NYPD has officers. But the Secret Service has half of the NYPD's budget. Part of this is simply due to the expanding scope of the Secret Service over time, which began its protection mandate in 1902 to cover U.S. presidents and vice presidents, but has since expanded to also include all former U.S. presidents and their families as well. In addition to the families
the
of
thing
sitting
is that
presidents and
I
vice
was thinking
presidents,
about American
candidates
grenades,
actively
so I
running for
was
the presidency alone.
I was in my head, I was picturing the number in feet, because I was thinking specifically about these, the new grenades the Marines are getting. Have you seen them?
No, I haven't seen anything about the grenades.
They can be concussive or lethal. Well, they can be less than lethal and more than lethal, basically.
Spouses, all 17 of the individuals in the presidential line of succession, ranging from the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore of the Senate to all of the secretary positions in the President's cabinet, as well as visiting foreign heads of state and heads of government, all of which is why the Secret Service has thousands of agents to protect all of these people today. And yet, despite the massive ballooning in the size, budget, and scope of the Secret Service since JFK's time, some of the organization's greatest scandals and blunders have taken place fairly recently, back during the Obama administration. In November of 2011, a man named Oscar Ortega was able to park his car on a street about 650 yards away from the White House. President Obama was not home at the time.
He just walks into the White House, I'm pretty sure.
But his daughter Sasha and mother Marion both were. At about 8:50 p.m. local time, Ortega then pointed a Romanian-made AK-47 out of the passenger side window of his car and fired a hail of bullets directly towards the White House across the South Lawn. At least 7 of the bullets he fired hit the upstairs residence of the White House and broke a window. Several of the Secret Service agents within the White House immediately reported to have heard the gunshots and moved out to respond.
That's fucking crazy.
Then, a supervising sergeant quickly ordered all of the agents to stand down and stated that there weren't any shots, falsely believing that it was simply construction noise. Meanwhile, 4 minutes later, Ortega sped his car away from the crime scene down Constitution Avenue and crashed his car right by the on-ramp to the Roosevelt Bridge, where a group of eyewitnesses called 911 to report the crash to the police. But Ortega managed to run away and disappear. Within 5 minutes of the call being made, local police and Secret Service agents arrived at the car, where they discovered the abandoned rifle and 9 spent shell casings on the floor.
Not the one that I thought I thought it was. This is very interesting. I did not know about this. This is very interesting.
But for several days afterward, nobody managed to connect the dots between the abandoned car with a rifle and spent shell casings and the previous incident reported at the White House. 4 days later, a White House housekeeper discovered a broken window and alerted an assistant, who further discovered several bullet holes lodged into the wall. And it was only then, 4 days later, that the Secret Service realized someone had made an attempt on the president's life. Secret Service agents were reportedly fearful of contradicting their superior's initial explanation of the incident as mere construction noise. Eyewitnesses of the car crash weren't immediately interviewed, while camera and audio surveillance equipment around the White House's perimeter were absent that could have helped investigators solve the assassination attempt more quickly. At the time, this was all a huge scandal within the Secret Service. Oscar Ortega himself, the shooter, was tracked down a couple years later in 2013.
Remember when I said at the beginning, no, the Secret Service just sucks. And from the start, I said it's actually really easy to assassinate a president. Nobody is just crazy enough to actually try it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they perceive it as something that's difficult.
Yeah, but it's the illusion of security.
Yeah.
But these people have never actually done what they're trained to do. It's all training. They will likely they'll all panic if something actually happened. You know, like a White House down situation. If someone actually did that,
No, literally,
they're
though.
fucked.
It is though. Like that, the detail that was left out of that grenade throw in Georgia was that it didn't go off. I don't know if he probably did say it. The handkerchief was tied. It was tied to the grenade, so they literally tied the pin into the grenade so it wouldn't be able to go off. Like, that's really stupid. The other assassin she didn't know how to fucking chamber around. She thought you could just buy a gun and pull the trigger. She didn't try to fire it before she attempted an assassination attempt. Like, it's so many times, it's like the first time somebody's ever shot a gun when they try to do an assassination, and that's why they fail. Because they don't prime the gun. Like that, the funniest one is that one. It's like in the Slavic, Yugoslav, post-Yugoslavia country or something. And the guy ran up, and it's like an air pistol, but he tries to shoot the guy in the head, but he didn't chamber it. And then, like, the entire crowd starts beating the shit out of the assassin.
Yes.
And they literally hit him with a briefcase and kick him in his ass.
I remember that, yeah.
Years in prison for the crime. And it was all far from the only major crisis of the Secret Service during the Obama administration. In 2012, President Obama was scheduled to visit Cartagena, Colombia, for the annual Summit of the Americas Conference. About 48 hours before Obama's arrival, 135 Secret Service agents were tasked with arriving in Cartagena first and preparing the area for the president. Then, around a dozen of the Secret Service agents involved brought back several prostitutes to their hotel rooms, which exploded into a major international scandal. And 10 of the Secret Service agents involved in the incident were sacked in disgrace. Then, just a couple more years later in 2014, a man named Omar J. Gonzalez, an Iraq War veteran struggling with PTSD, managed to jump over the fence along Pennsylvania Avenue and the White House's North Lawn. He proceeded to then run across the...
He just walks in. It was like 3 times too.
Entire North Lawn, past a guard booth and a K-9 unit unhindered, and broke through the unlocked and undefended White House front door. Once inside of the White House, an alarm box placed immediately to the left should have been ringing loudly to alert security inside of the intruder. But for whatever reason, on this specific day, the alarm box had been intentionally muted, allegedly because of complaints that it was too loud. As a result, the guard standing inside of the front door wasn't expecting anything outside of the unusual.
Like when you take the batteries out of the smoke
came
detector
bursting through the front door.
Off.
Or the guard didn't have enough time to react, and Gonzalez just ran right past him, through the White House's entrance hall, just past the stairway that led up to the Obama family's living quarters, and into the East Room, where he was finally tackled to the ground by a Secret Service counter-assault team. This, of course, became another huge scandal for the Secret Service during the Obama years. How did they allow a man armed with a knife to get so deeply into the White House before he was actually stopped? The scandal, mounting on top of the previous shooting at the White House in 2011 that went undetected for days, led the House of Representatives to launch an inquiry into the Secret Service's conduct, which quickly led to the then director of the Secret Service, Julia Pearson, resigning from her office. The 2014 House Commission cited that the Secret Service of 2014 struggled from a, quote, catastrophic failure of training, and suggested a series of reforms to the agency be made in the aftermath. Reforms that included a new policy that Secret Service agents should spend a full 25% of their work time actively in training. Before the Commission's report was released, Secret Service agents had only spent an average of 3% of their work time in training in 2014. Initially, the Secret Service agreed to that reform at first, but then over time, they never really ended up ever doing anything about it. By 2018, Secret Service agents were only spending between 3 and 6% of their work time in training, far below the target suggested by the 2014 Commission report. By 2019, the Secret Service came out publicly and said that they no longer agreed with the 2014 report's training target, and that they plan to reevaluate it, effectively going back on their previous promise in 2014 to increase agents' training. Despite all of this, though, no attempt on a president or former president's life ever came as serious as the one on Ronald Reagan in 1981 for decades. There were several attempts, to be sure, but none of them ever even harmed a president or their family until, of course, 43 years later after the devastating attempt on Reagan's life, the Secret Service's dumb luck appeared to finally run out in 2024. On the 3rd of July, 2024, 10 days before the attempt on Donald Trump's life would be made, it was publicly announced that Trump would be hosting a campaign rally 10 days later, on the 13th of July, at the Butler Farm Showgrounds in the small town of Meridian, nearby a slightly larger small town known as Butler in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. This gave any potential attacker a maximum of 10 days to have learned about the event's location and to prepare for it. And it seems like that was enough time. It has since been reported by the New York Times.
Why? Why don't we ask why that was enough time? If they were specifically wanting to kill Donald Trump, would it not have been easier to track him at all times and figure out an easier spot? Instead, the guy was searching for large events related to the president What does that sound like? Does it sound like an assassin? No. Assassins generally don't go for large events. Why would they? Fucking stupid. Large events, heavy security, mass shooter profile.
Times that on the 7th of July, 4 days after the rally at Butler Farms was announced, and 6 days before the rally would be held there, the future gunman, who would later be identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, may have visited the location and cased the area out for his attack. Geolocation data taken from his cell phone after the attack revealed that he probably was there 6 days before the attack took place, indicating that everything that would happen later would be plotted out well in advance by him. Interestingly, on the 8th of July, the very day after Crooks was probably visiting the location planning out his attack, 3 agents from the Secret Service visited the location as well to plan out their own defense, missing Crooks by just a single day. And almost immediately, even this far back, 5 days before the rally would take...
That's pretty fucking funny. So I reckon they'll change their policy now that they'll, once the date is announced, they'll have Secret Service patrols around the area in the week or weeks leading up to it. I think is what they'll change, you'll find.
Place. Flagrant oversights on the part of the Secret Service were beginning to emerge. First of all, the agents available for all of the Secret Service's various needs were arguably overstretched. The agency has but 8,000 agents today to protect the president and vice president and both of their families. All former living presidents and their families as well. All major presidential and vice presidential candidates and their families. All the members within the presidential line of succession, and all visiting heads of state and distinguished foreign visitors. And even U.S. representatives abroad on specially assigned missions. Even Joe Biden's grandchildren are protected by Secret Service agents these days. On the very same day that Trump was due to be delivering his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, Jill Biden, the wife of President Biden, was also making a visit of her own to nearby Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
It was a fucking conspiracy. The Bidens did it. It's all planned.
I know. Which some people have speculated could have stretched the Secret Service's resources in Pennsylvania thin that day, a charge that is currently denied by the Secret Service itself. At any rate, at approximately 1 p.m. on the 13th of July, the actual day of the rally, the Butler Farm Show opened up to thousands of attendants who came to witness Donald Trump's speech, scheduled for later that evening. And they would continue trickling into the venue for the next several hours to take their seats in bleachers that were positioned behind where Trump would be speaking, or in a crowd standing in front of where Trump would be speaking. The Secret Service itself decided on a security plan that essentially looked something like this. The Butler Farm Showgrounds itself is conveniently a fully enclosed venue that is surrounded by a fence. This fence would effectively mark the border of the inner perimeter of the Secret Service's defense plan. And all of the Secret Service agents assigned to protect Trump this day would be stationed within the borders of this inner perimeter. The fence would block out people from entering the venue without tickets, while all of the attendants themselves would be screened before they entered this inner perimeter by metal detectors to block anybody from entering the venue with a weapon. A core group of Secret Service agents would be positioned close by to Trump himself while he was on stage, while 2 teams of Secret Service snipers would be positioned immediately behind Trump's podium on the highest buildings around. These 2 barns that each stood approximately 23 feet high. However, no Secret Service agents would be assigned anywhere beyond the area of this inner perimeter, and all of the areas beyond it would be assigned to local law enforcement agencies instead, such as the Pennsylvania State Police, the Butler Township Police Department, the Butler County Sheriff, and the Pittsburgh...
At least this video is like a more pop culture-y video that's actually got decent information to the point that he's actually explaining that it was the local police.
Bureau of Police.
Like it was a bit glazy at the start, where he's like, "Oh, Donald Trump, it's a miracle that he survived," sort of thing. But
I mean, it kind of is.
Define miracle without implicating religion.
I mean, that's the thing is that because it's coming from an American, it sounds like a religious thing. When a lot of people are using that as just a term, as like, whoa, that's crazy, magic, you know, but like not real magic.
Yeah, it's just dumb luck.
It's he's got you can say he dumps points into his luck stat. He definitely doesn't have high intelligence build. He's just luck and charisma.
His luck and charisma.
The area outside of this inner perimeter included a series of warehouses nearby, directly to the north of the venue here, owned by a company called AGR International, including the southernmost warehouse that's only 450 feet away from where Donald Trump was scheduled to be speaking at. And this is where we get to the first part of information in this story that is currently conflicting. According to the currently serving director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, the responsibility of protecting these warehouses outside of the inner perimeter were assigned to the local law enforcement agencies. And she has stated the local law enforcement officers were present within the southernmost warehouse building that's closest to the venue and the location where Trump would be speaking at. But Cheadle has also stated that the Secret Service didn't request any officer to be positioned on the roofs of these warehouses due to safety concerns over the roofs of them being slightly angled. However, this is despite the fact that, according to an independent analysis,
This is a really good AI thing, actually. It perfectly shows you the tree that was blocking them.
Yeah, I mean, does it say where he got the resource from?
Um,
Because I'm not sure if he. Oh, this guy, he might have his own.
oh,
I didn't.
I think he's in that Nebula Nexus. So
Yeah.
he
No,
probably
I
has.
know. I didn't realize
resource.
that's who this was.
Yeah.
proofs of them being slightly angled.
Some
However,
of his videos
this
are
is
real
despite
shit.
the fact that, according to
His
an
Ethiopia Dam video.
Yeah. There was another one on his channel that I wanted to watch. This one, the America has a lot of military bases video that he made. It's an hour long though.
Yeah, I mean, already it's like
that. You're already starting from a bad place.
an analysis conducted by the Washington Post, the roofs of the barns where the Secret Service's own counter-sniper teams were positioned within the inner perimeter were even steeper than the roofs of the warehouses
we already
outside
know
of the
all
perimeter.
of this.
Moreover, every single one of the local law enforcement agencies involved with assisting the Secret Service at the rally that day have stated that none of them were actually assigned the responsibility of guarding the warehouses just to the north of the inner security perimeter. In total, about 100 Secret Service agents and local police officers were assigned to guard the event that day, and the vast majority of the local police officers were reportedly assigned to duties within the inner security perimeter, along with all of the Secret Service agents who were present.
So
The few local police officers
a Secret Service fuck up then. Because if they were coordinating the whole event, or does that delegation go down to organizing the middle perimeter with the cops? Or is that just like, or is it delegated down to the cops and do they have to look after
I don't
it?
know.
Weren't they staging out of that building?
I don't know. They were
Isn't that the
staging out of the
information
building,
we
yes.
heard?
So that's
So-
probably they weren't focused on it because they're like, why would they go into the building we're in?
Yeah, it was a false sense of security, right? It's like,
Always
why
been.
would they shoot from the building we're in? So,
who were assigned to duties outside of the inner perimeter were reportedly assigned to traffic direction duties. So, the Secret Service director has claimed the local police officers were present within the closest warehouse to the venue, but they weren't on top of it. While all of the local law enforcement
There we go.
agencies claimed that they literally didn't have anyone assigned to this specific building at all. Instead, the local police provided 7 of their own snipers to support the Secret Service snipers, but none of them were ever positioned on the rooftops of the warehouses that were closest to the venue. Instead, 4 of the 7 local police snipers were positioned within the inner security perimeter along with the Secret Service snipers. The 3 other local police snipers were reportedly assigned to the second floor of the warehouse immediately behind the southernmost warehouse, where the shooter would eventually position himself on top of. Here, it was thought, the 3 snipers would have a good view of the crowd without apparently being exposed to the danger of the sloped roof above them. But obviously, this eliminated their ability to actually detect a potential shooter on top of the building in front of them. A major oversight. Regardless, this was the way that the Secret Service and local police officers were positioned around the rally as it was getting started.
There's also
and
just
at the
a
same time, the shooter was making his own preparations to attack. At approximately
pretty big
9:30 a.m. on the
drone
day of the
operation
attack,
inside Russia from Ukraine.
inside.
Yeah. They hit like
Cool.
something.
Anything big?
Airbase.
Ooh, neat.
Multiple secondary explosions could also be.
this
seen.
video was made possible.
Why is that playing? What is playing?
by Curiosity Stream and Nebula. Watch another full-length companion video to this one in my ongoing Modern Conflict series that explains the entire course of the Battle of Aleppo during the Syrian Civil War, which you can access by signing up for the Curiosity Stream Nebula bundle deal for less than $15 a year at curiositystream.com/real-life-lore. You've probably seen a map of the world before that looks a lot like this. A map of the world's 195 mostly recognized countries. These maps show the arbitrary lines created by humans over the centuries that divide us. They show the boundaries of nations and the locations of cities, and over the past several decades, this map has rarely changed.
I can't figure it out. Hold on.
And he died. He's dead.
Just leave us out of your weird hobbies!
That's it. He's never coming back.
Jesus fucking Christ. It was like 7 things playing and my pause button wouldn't pause any of them.
Yeah, because your shit was crashing from multiple videos playing.
That was fucked. Okay. Give me...
Big bada boom. I sent you a video about the new hand grenades.
Yeah, I know.
So the thing is that, so get this, they're flimsy ass plastic, right?
Mm.
And the charge that's in the inside, comp B.
Okay.
Plastique. It's not a
really?
fragmentary.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
can't be as like explosive charges.
Awesome.
Offensive grenade, meaning it doesn't produce any fragmentation, so it is safer for the user and collateral damage can be minimized. One unit is called a base unit. One by itself is concussion. A base plus one, they just screw together. A base plus one, the overpressure will kill anything inside the room. A base plus two, you're at 391 grams of explosive and it becomes anti-structure.
You just screw them together?
Yeah, and then it's an anti-structure grenade.
What the fuck?
Right? So you can throw them and take out, like, that's what they're more for. These are like, that's what he's saying is they're offensive grenades, right?
Neat.
Like they're meant to be used at close range. Like
Mm,
most grenades are
okay.
defensive grenades.
For like close it, like a retreat or something.
Well, no, just fragmentation grenades are generally defensive.
Mm.
These ones are like you throw it and you're going to be in that room right after it explodes, and sometimes
Yeah.
stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah. But I sent you a meme also. Can we pull up that meme? Because they're giving this to Marines, the crayon eaters of all people, right?
That is very funny.
But like I want to say there's probably like it can't do more than 3 just because of how the fuse works or something.
Maybe.
But who knows?
They definitely will wizard staff them though.
Oh yeah, then they'll fight with them.
Then someone will die.
That's why you can't have Marines be having, you know, dangerous frag like that, you know.
He then drove his
even the
car to the
fuse is
rally
plastic
location.
too, though.
Mm.
So really cheap.
Later that afternoon, and he brought with him an AR-15 light rifle he had purchased from his father, a bulletproof vest, several rudimentary explosive devices, and a drone. Upon arriving at the rally location, he likely used this drone to fly over the rally ground and survey the location and the placements of the counter-sniper teams without being detected. By doing this, he almost certainly saw the absence of any snipers or personnel on the warehouses to the north of the rally. And he also probably saw that there weren't any officers present on a taller water tower to the east of the warehouses either. Armed with this knowledge of where there were and where there were not any snipers, Crooks then likely decided to expand his surveillance of the area down on the ground. At approximately 5:10 p.m., a full hour before the shooting would take place, Crooks was actually identified by local police officers standing outside of the inner security perimeter acting suspiciously. They took several photos of him and radioed an alert to the Secret Service and other officers that a suspicious person
aren't going
had
to
been
get gobbled
spotted.
up into the Navy at any point because of the risk of China conflict. Even the Army's preparing for China. The Marines got rid of tanks specifically because they know they're going to have to make landings if China goes off.
Did you see they lost Ben Shapiro on the Kamala Harris thing?
No.
They lost him. Unless he's saying, this is good, we should continue this.
I mean, let's go to his channel. Fuck this video. I mean, it's a good video. He's got pretty much everything right.
Yeah. Like
we've gone over it enough.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really need to talk about Trump's assassination anymore because nobody cares.
Yeah,
unless
also
there is a
100%.
video about how nobody cares anymore.
Oh, really?
I think.
Nothing. DI hire?
She became a black person.
Harris fans.
That was like honestly one of the greatest things Trump has ever said. She became a black person.
That's it.
The fascists not able to process interracial like marriage is so funny. They're like, wait,
well, just the fact that they can't
black.
Like they can't process not white and black interracial. Like mixed race in America is white and black.
They did that also with Obama, where they said he wasn't really black because he was half white.
Yeah, but this is like I don't think you
So
grasp
this
what I'm
one's
saying.
funny because it's like this one's funny. No, but they would say they wouldn't.
it's
You're right though.
even
They wouldn't
funnier.
say Obama was white. They would just say that he wasn't black.
Mm-hmm. So it's even funnier that this is exposing America's stupidity on mixed race, like their opinion on mixed race things as well, right? Because this is just my experience, but to Americans, mixed race is always black and white. You're black and Asian, you're something else. You're not mixed. When it's obviously mixed race, right? There's two distinct things there.
Well, black and Asian is Blasian.
I know what it is. I'm saying that if you talk about mixed race and you're talking about people who aren't black and white, Americans will be confused.
Yeah. Well, the race
because it's just like dumb brain.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?